Okay, welcome to the show, Jonty. This meetup has been boiling for quite a while. Finally, we are here. How are you? Did you train today?
I'm good. I did train today. I think you should know that. You're my coach.
Yes. Yes.
I feel if you've not been staring at my training peaks, I'd feel like that forgotten middle child where you go to sports day and your parents kind of aren't there to support you. Yeah, I did train today. I did 50 minutes of spinning out on the bike, and then I swam 2,000 meters. So all good. The training's been done. It's all there.
Yeah. I get notification from your training, so I know. So Jonty is an expert communicator. He is the managing director of Hanover Middle East. He has been hosting a really nice podcast, very, very sharp and pretty. The brief from Middle East Public Relations Association, where he was chairman for a while, and now he's with the board. Jonty is an athlete, is a father, and an husband. So you know that with this podcast, Tools of the Humans, we want to hear from people how they face challenges in life and which tools, strategies, and tactics they use to overcome them. First of all, tell us in 100 words, probably it's a couple of sentences, who is Jonty?
Well, Tommaso, thanks. I think you do my PR for me better than I do, but I do run a public relations firm here. I've been in the Middle East for nearly 14 years now. If you wind back to the start, I was always an athlete as a kid. I played tennis very seriously until I was about 22, 23, not quite to professional level, but it kind of my spark for activity was formed in the cradle and has carried on. I started training with BR in 2020. Just more as a kind of consequence of lockdown, where I just thought I'd been jogging for a while. I want something new to try. So I'm 2 years into training as a triathlete.
Yes, I know very well. And I've been with your coach since the beginning of your, let's say, new journey into triathlon, right? You've been racing already in the past. And
you have.
Jonty has also a great background as a runner. So that's probably your strength in the 3 disciplines when we're talking about triathlon. Let's go to the core of the episode now, okay? In the last few years, we've been chatting and talking about getting into the big challenge of triathlon, so Ironman, the full distance. So for those who don't know what it is, it's like 3.9 kilometers swim, right away another 80 kilometers bike, and then a marathon, 42 kilometers run right away to complete it and in a reasonable manner of time, let's say. So this is one of those life-changing experiences that most of the athletes, when they're approaching the idea of Ironman, they need to put many things in place. They need to find balance, family, life, work, in order to get the performance that they want to achieve on race day. So with Jonty, we decided, okay, we're going to commit for Hamburg. I'm saying we because, as a coach, we have to look at many variables, and we designed a plan. And Jonty was sticking to it like very good soldier, okay? But just 1 month before the race last year, what happened?
It's weird we start with like straight into Ironman, isn't it? Because most people they start by doing a couch to 5K. But here we are straight into Ironman, which just feels like totally normal. Yeah. So, we were doing, we were 5 weeks out from, it was Frankfurt, actually, Hamburg's this year.
Right.
More on that later. But yes, we were 5 weeks out. I think we were on a 17-hour training week. I think it was the biggest week we'd done. And I was just in the final run of that weekend. I think we'd done quite a lot of training. I think I must have been just about an hour into the run. It was late May, last weekend of May. It's pretty hot running down Beach Road. And as I was running down Beach Road, not very fast, it must be said, like 5:30, 5:40 pace, very easy, because I had 2 hours 30 minutes or 2 hours 40 minutes to do from memory. A kid ran out of a car across the jogging track and ran into a burger shop on the side, and I moved out of the way to try and dodge the kid, and ended up like literally feeling like my leg go out this weird angle and this really bad shooting pain, and basically just like collapsed on the floor like footballers do, except footballers normally get up after about 20 seconds, and I was there for 20 minutes going, my leg really,
you were not
really,
faking
really...
it. You were not faking it.
I wasn't faking it. And it was, and weird, at that moment, I knew I was not going to be doing an Ironman in 5 weeks. I was like, there is no way I could be feeling this pain now. I mean, it's still a good party trick just to make the writhing around in pain when you snap your hamstring tendon. So off we went, X-rays, MRIs. So what happened was that I basically completely snapped my hamstring tendon where it inserts in the outside of my knee. So most people, sprinters, for example, will snap their tendon right up at the buttock, at the top of the gluteals. And I was right down the bottom, which is more of the kind of endurance athlete's way of doing it. It's a really unusual place to snap it. In fact, when I started physio a few weeks later, the physio said he'd only seen 2 in 17 years. One guy was like an Olympic lifter, and the other guy was a footballer. So it's not a very usual place to snap your tendon. So just
very uncommon.
Yeah, very uncommon.
Especially for triathletes, probably not even probable, right? I mean, our way of moving is always forward, so probably the movement change of direction there is the one that killed the hamstring.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really weird. And I've never had a major surgery before, so I've never had to do a proper rehab. Unlike some of our training colleagues, who some of them have had hundreds of injuries and surgeries and all sorts of stuff. But it's interesting when you get into surgery rehab world, the kind of weird stuff that goes on to people. Like literally, one guy was telling me about a guy who was playing golf, and he putted a ball into golf, and he put the ball in the hole, and he picked up the ball out of the hole. He turned away and he snapped his cruciate ligament. Like literally, all he did was pick a golf ball out of a hole. So it can happen to anybody at any time. You know, it's just fake.
As a coach, as soon as one of the athletes injures himself, you know, you start feeling guilty. Oh my God, what did I prescribe? You know, it was something crazy, but then we spoke about it. And the funny thing that you said, you know, I never had a major surgery, or I never had a major problem, you know, like, you know, sport and muscles and stuff like this. And all of a sudden, you find an obstacle in front of you, which is not at the horizon. You know, those one, we already talked about it. We made a list of things that we couldn't control. But this one here is just now, immediate. You need to forget about racing. You need to forget about training, and you feel the pain. So now in your mind, what's the process?
Well, so I'll be totally honest. There was a moment where I was like, thank God I don't have to train for a couple of weeks, because we've done some massive weeks, right? We've done a couple of 15-hour weeks and 17-hour weeks.
I'm gonna cut this from the podcast.
Definitely not. But I was like, oh, that'd be quite nice. I can lie in the morning. That'd be amazing. But but I knew pretty quickly that I would come back. Partially, so I mean, it took me, I think, from the injury, I flew to the UK to watch my football team get promoted to the Premiership, which was quite good. And then I flew back immediately, and the next day I did the surgery in the Valiant Clinic here in Dubai. Really, really great surgeon, Dr. Harris, brilliant guy, knee guy. And I knew from the start that actually it was not a complex surgery. It was just a tendon. So all that had to happen was that he had basically, you know, drilled a hole in my tibia, like put a pin into it, stuck the tendon in with like sticky tape, and tensioned it off like a guy rope on a tent. So it's a very simple surgery. It's not like you've got a cruciate or meniscus or anything that you've got to go inside the knee. So I knew it was simple, and I knew that wouldn't be too difficult to come back from. Good. What I didn't know, never having done it before, is, you know, when you look at traditional treatments, it always was like you immobilize your knee forever, and then, you know, eventually you come back. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. But I was very fortunate that literally a week after surgery. So I spent my first week after surgery hopping around in a brace. I'd got some cool crutches with skulls on that I bought on my London trip. So I was feeling like the money walking around, hobbling around. But it was obviously painful, as it would be. And I'd stopped taking the painkillers because, you know, when you leave hospital in this place, they give you like more drugs. Like, I don't know what the street value of those drugs is, but those things are, you know, I'm not very good at taking like painkillers because a lot of them do kind of like make you slur your words and stuff. It's not great. So pretty much on day 2 out of hospital, I'd stopped taking the painkillers. You know, and the kind of really strong ones I didn't take ever. So I was just taking like a strong paracetamol stuff. So the first, so I was just going to say, so the physio, literally the first week, so literally 6 days after surgery, I was into the physio and he's like, let's take the brace off. Let's see if you can walk. And I was like, that's great. And so I took the brace off and we walked around and it was like, oh, and it's always like you need to be given permission to move your leg. But actually, you know, once I'd done it and walked around, and there was some Instagram footage of it, it was quite painful, but your body picks it up pretty quickly. So I'd never wore the brace after that. So I was just like straight back into walking, not normally, but, you know, definitely learning how to walk again, learning how to go upstairs, learning how to, and I still use the crutches for maybe another week or so after that. And then was just walking very slowly, getting used to walking. And then pretty quickly he got me on the bike. I was doing the strengthening exercises. And I bought an aqua jogger, you know, one of those like 80s aerobics vests. I went down to Sported on Beach Road and got one of those. But actually that's brilliant because it suddenly means that you can like float around in the water. And I'm fortunate to live in Sakim, so I can go to the sea. And I was doing like 30 minutes of like floating around vertically, you know, moving my legs. So that was really good. And it was obvious.
You're giving a lot of credit. You're giving a lot of credit to the physiotherapy and to, you know, all these tools that, you know, you bought, and this kind of training that was effectively not related to preparing again for an Ironman or for a triathlon race. You know, it was just a process, a period that you had to go through. And
the rehab was pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, like. Important. And what's the mentality there? I mean, I remember because I've saved all our chats since you got the injury. I have it on my WhatsApp, so I went through. And at the beginning, as you said, you know, you take it a little bit, you know, in a humoristic way. Say, you know what, I don't have to train for a while. But then after 1 week, you're there like, okay, we need to start doing something. So you have spiked adrenaline and dopamine and endorphin and everything for like the last 6 months, like massively. I mean, the volume, as you said, was high. And all of a sudden, also from a point of view, you're going down completely. What's the tool that you used to find again motivation? Because some people say, okay, motivation, you must be motivated, but sometimes you're not. So you need to feed in some way your purpose in your motivation daily. At the point you are, you know, in the ditch, you need to start over again. What was your reasoning, or what was your, you know, something that you have been learning with the years of training, or with your life, or just luck, maybe?
So I was pretty fortunate that summer. I mean, I got operated on in June. And had 3 weeks of kind of milling around in the UAE, kind of like doing the stuff. And then at the end of June, I went back to the UK, where both my children were graduating from university. And I actually spent nearly 5 weeks in the UK, which is the longest I've spent in the UK, where I'm from, for 14 years. And so I actually had a whole summer in the UK. And while it wasn't and I had access to swimming pools. I didn't have access to rehab stuff, but it was going to be too soon to do running. And actually the regeneration that just spending time with friends and family was actually really powerful. I knew in my mind that I was going to come back. It was just that that having that kind of like decompression to get ready. I was very fortunate to go and, you know, spend a few times swimming in some quite nice swimming pools, but when I was in the UK. And that was pretty helpful. I think that I think that I always had the plan in my mind when I returned to Dubai 5 weeks later to start the rehab proper. And I'd already identified the physio and the setup where I wanted to do that, which was FPEPSIA in Dubai Sports City, which is a really great gym. And João Arteche, our head coach, had recommended a really great physio there, Hayden Hill, who's been fundamental in the kind of rehab in the last 4 or 5 months. You know, great South African guy, ex-rugby player, spent time physioing the Indian wrestling team, which apparently gives you all the medical background you need. And then prior to coming to Dubai, spent some time with the Chinese Olympic speed skating team, which apparently is an incredible setup. So he's got proper creds, great, and really great work. But one of the reasons I wanted to do FPEPSIA is because it has an anti-gravity treadmill there. So one of those treadmills where you kind of get into some shorts and they can kind of like control your body weight. There aren't too many of them in Dubai, but there's one there. And I knew that would be really important for getting back into running. And I still use that facility now. No, it's 8 months later. And it's been really good. You know, they've got a good setup. Weirdly, not many people use that gym because it's incredible. So having an idea of where the future plan was going to be was quite helpful, because, you know, when you speak to surgeons, they'll tell you it's going to take 5 months till back to full sport. So I was like, okay, June. So we're looking at November. Fine. But actually within that, once you start properly rehabbing, you know, you can actually do a lot from 3 months afterwards. I mean, probably if I'd still been in Dubai, I would have been using some of the gym. I would have been ski erging a lot more. I'd have been using my upper body a lot more. But I was traveling. It didn't matter. And so I was like, we'll just let the process run out. And then I know what the plan is. Once I get back to Dubai, I'm going to hit the ground, not running, because I couldn't run at that point. But I'll definitely be back, and I can see what the route ahead is going to look like.
It's fair to say that planning in front of challenges, in front of obstacles, helps a lot to overcome them. Now, obviously, you need to make the right choices. I think one of the right choices you made, and this is a message for all the sport people and listeners, was talking to me, you know, even if you are out of the training plan, let's say, because I wasn't planning anything for you, but we were always chatting about this. So it was keeping your momentum alive. It was keeping your purpose alive. And it was a way to feed it. You know, it was a way to, okay, we're going to have a plan as soon as you come back, as soon as we get the green light for everything. It was step by step. So it doesn't have to be a fairly long horizon that people must have in their plan to overcome the obstacles. I think it's, okay, there is a plan to get there. Okay, let it do to the expert. And then, you know, step by step, go through the phases and go through the training and go through the process. And, you know, you get there. Because some people, you know, they try to visualize, you know, visualize vivid images, and you're visualizing too far away at the point if you don't get there, because you made the right choices. But if you made the wrong choices, let's say you go to the wrong physiotherapy, the physiotherapist, now they, you know, you start having pains and stuff. Now you're visualizing a target that you cannot reach, depression will come. Like depression in sense of, you know, not achieving the performance that you want, you know. So it's a mix of things, but the tool is have a plan. Okay, don't wait and see, day by day, but don't wait and see day by day without, you know, purpose, without motivation. So good on you, really. And I mean, it's something that you know, the way you structure things.
I think communication is obviously really important, but we're very fortunate here that we have a sort of, there's a team set up. So obviously you and I, you know, have worked together for now 2.5 years. So obviously we talk, I guess you talk to some of your athletes a lot more than you talk to me. I think I'm pretty low maintenance, really, but but you know, there's a group, there's other coaches in the group who have good advice to give. There's also a team set up where there are people who will support you and give you advice, and have got your back when needed. And I think we've had within the world of triathlon, there've been a couple of other, there've been quite a few quite public, like pros, like Lucy Charles Barclay had a massive injury at the start of the year. She had a fracture and was documenting that comeback on her YouTube channel. And I found stuff like that massively motivating as well, where you think you can come back. Just because it looks bad now doesn't mean it's going to look bad. It's like a race, right? It looks bad. It might look bad now, but it's not going to look bad in half an hour's time. So I think that's also pretty important. Attitude makes most of the difference. Yes. You just have to believe that you will come back. And the reality is, for me, I was very fortunate. I remember having a chat with Alessio Rispoli, who's obviously one of our pro coaches at BR. And he said, "Jonty, I don't know whether you've been lucky or unlucky." And I was like, "Of course I've been lucky. I've been really lucky, obviously, because I'm quite optimistic. But, all I did was like snap a tendon. It could have been much worse, right? Could have been much worse. Yeah. It's easy to deal with that. You can come back from that. So attitude makes a big difference. Of course, the line of progress is not always straight and linear. But I think if you've got the attitude that, whatever happens, you'll be able to get through it. And, the reality is that, I'm 51 years old, so life is a long-term game. It's my life is an Ironman, not a sprint, right? So yeah. I know that
the journey is never ending.
Well, journey is also, that is an important part. And I've always been someone who's been motivated by training as much as, I love racing, absolutely love racing. But the reality is I'm not as goal focused as like immediate goal focused as some people. I love the feeling of training. I love, I'm happy getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go for a run. Not that I do. I try to sleep in as much as possible, particularly because I don't have small children anymore. But I love that process of just getting fit and living healthily. And, I'm never happier than when, going for a ride, going for a run, and since I discovered triathlon, going for a swim as well, which has been a whole new voyage of adventure for me. So that's also extremely motivating, and you never want to give that up. And it's interesting, having done a race last weekend, the guy who won the over the 70 to 74 category was only like a few minutes slower than I was. So there's always stuff to aim for.
We get there. No worries. We get there. Speaking of races, like few weekends back, it was your return to race with an Olympic distance triathlon in Ras Al Khaimah, where you won your age group with a outstanding performance. Back at it, and everything went quite well. Testing few things. It was like literally 1 year that you were not racing, and you were testing your body in a racing environment that we know it's different from training. You cannot give away anything. But then last weekend, as you said, you raced Oman Half Ironman, and even we were not talking about it, but we knew that we had some expectations of a rewarding result. We wanted to get the slot for the World Championship. We want to get a good race and everything. And did you have any fear going to race in Oman, going into that race? Because it was not an Olympic distance. Olympic distance, very well. Worst case scenario, 3 hours, you're out. Half Ironman can be longer. It's a new environment. It's a longer race. You have a half marathon at the end, which was effectively the first time that we were assessing that one after the full recovery and back to racing. Any fear?
So there hadn't been any fear, but interestingly, I'd had a few niggles in my hamstring, the hamstring I'd injured just after we'd done rack. And rack had done fine, but I'd run actually very slowly for me. I'd run like, quite like 10% or 15% slower than the last time I'd done that race. And I'm still not back to full speed running, definitely. And then I'd had a couple. We'd had a couple of long runs in the weekends in the between that where my hamstring had tightened up, and I think the reality is that I think what has happened is that I hadn't done some of the strength work over the Christmas period. I think holidays are quite a difficult time for triathletes generally. I think sometimes you skip your gym and stuff like that, and my tendons are probably just not as strong as they used to be, and my muscles are definitely still not quite where they used to be. And so we'd had a couple of not optimal runs. I'd been to see the physio. He'd needled me and worked out all the stiffness, and so I was sort of hopeful for Oman. I actually felt I had a physio session about 3 days before, and I thought this is going to be fine. And then I had a great swim in Oman, third in the age group. I had a nice run, even though my power meter, a nice bike, even though my power meter didn't work. And then literally within 50 meters of leaving T2, my whole left hamstring cramped up, and 100 meters into the run, I was lying on my back with my leg over my, trying to work out the stiffness in my leg. So which I hadn't really expected. And it was that was absolutely a worst case scenario, because as you say, my goal was pretty clear from doing this race. I wanted to go to World Championships lost in August in Lahti. And there were a few moments where I thought, there's a chance this might not happen. But, but I also knew that, lots of people have terrible runs, and I've done a great swim and a decent enough bike. And I thought, if I could just make it through, you never know. So that's basically what I had to do. I had the stiffness and cramp, whatever you call it, took me about an hour to get rid of. And I basically had to find a way to try and run without using any muscles. It's very hard to run, because obviously running is all posterior chain. It's very hard to run without using your hamstrings at all. But I basically had this imagery of trying to run on my skeleton, just stack everything, head over shoulders over hips, and then just not use any muscles and just be totally balanced and do that. And it's sort of, and eventually, weirdly, after about, I think I've been going for about 65 minutes, it's suddenly just got a bit easier, and I tagged onto another runner and then started running a bit faster, and made it in actually probably definitely my slowest ever half marathon time, but it was good enough for a qualification. Had I run had I run what I ran in my previous half marathon in a 70.3, I would have come second or third, but it was a bit further.
Well, I mean, with if we cannot go very far, But the thing is,
exactly.
You didn't do the exercise, the stoic exercise of negative visualization, which is not that easy, right away thinking about things that are gonna go wrong. Yeah, definitely this one can happen, and now no, you didn't do it. So the expectation there was not to have any issues, it's going to be a slow run, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to go through. So as soon as you get the obstacle there, how do you overcome that one?
Yeah, triathlon is good, particularly when you get onto longer distance triathlons. They're good life lessons. You can't really expect that everything will go smoothly. You have to accept what is coming to you, and sometimes that may be great, but often it'll be pain and discomfort, and you just have to learn to not attach any value judgments to that and just go, well, this is where I am now, and I'm going to get through that.
I think plan is one tool that you're using. Having the motivation, having the plan, having something that you are targeting, but also having a set of tools, like you said, life, triathlon race. So you go through phases. So you need to get not just one tool, but your tool bags where you effectively you pick up, in front of pain. What do you do? Okay, in front of, I cannot walk. And then you align the 3-circle, head and diaphragm and the hips and everything. So these are things that you knew, and it gives really a good advice for people. Be competent on what you're doing, because like Patterson says, if you're competent, you are dangerous. no? So you're dangerous, not because you're going to kill somebody, but because you're going to go, okay, I'm going to execute the order. I'm going to do my activity. I'm going to achieve. I'm going to, finally get the result. So, competency and knowledge of what you're doing is another tool that sometimes we forget. We were just in this flow of globalization and seeing other people doing things. Yeah, I've heard, like the rumors, the word of mouth. No, read about it, okay? Just grab what happened to you a few years back and, put it into practice. And set of tools, not only one tool that you just carry with you.
I think the thing with when you're in a triathlon race or whatever race you're doing, or some sort of endeavor that's a long distance endurance race, your field of vision is actually pretty narrow. You're actually really only focused. I mean, sometimes you don't even notice people on the sides who are cheering and screaming your name, because actually your field of focus is so small.
There are some pictures of you cheering at the crowd and sponsoring some beverages that
I know.
No, but
Red Bull.
I know
so the Oman Ironman was serving like literally the largest glass. I'd never drunk a Red Bull before I started doing triathlon, and now it's like my guilty pleasure. It's like they give me a pint of Red Bull halfway around. I'm like, this is amazing.
Amazing. Let's do it.
But the point I was gonna make is that actually understanding how your body is and knowing what that can do and what you are able to do, and sometimes you can override stuff even though you're feeling really bad in a race or in training. I mean, training's never feels that bad. I mean, it feels quite hard, but it's always going to be, training will always end at some point, and if you stop it early, nobody's going to tell you that they saw you most of the time. But a race is difficult to pull out of, and sometimes I think when you're in a race, and you've got a point of focus and you know what your body can do or how it can feel, the better you know your body, the more you're able to overcome some of those difficulties when they come. The race, particularly the long distance races, are going to sometimes present you obstacles that you've not had to overcome before. But I think getting to know your body during training can be really, really useful when stuff goes wrong, because stuff always goes wrong. At some point, stuff will go wrong. So you need to ride with it and get over it.
No, as coaches, we talk about this body awareness so many times, body awareness, because when you start, you don't have any. I mean, like you are just, immersed in the fluid or immersed in the air, and you don't know how the body is going to behave. So having this expertise to know what the body would behave, what the body would feel. And do you think that I was reading the scientific article the other day about repressive coping? Do you think this is a valid technique that you used during your
repressive coping? What is that? That sounds like an academic thing.
Yeah,
I only do feelings. I don't do academics.
So there are different points of views. It depends if you are mentally repressive coping. So if you have like a pain and then mentally you want to repress it, then there are studies that say, look, it's gonna affect your cardiovascular system, your hypertension and cancer as well. But on the other hand, for high thresholds of pain, if you start visualizing the better times, let's say, so basically with visualization, basically with these meditation techniques, now you are coping, repressing the pain that you're feeling at the moment. Okay, so you are in pain in the race. Okay, how you are getting along, how you get over it, because it's painful, and people is like, if you would have stopped, halas, done, you don't have any pain. But now you continue and you're going beyond the threshold of the pain, and you're just finishing the race and smile at the finish line.
Yeah, so the run section of my Oman 70.3 is probably a good example of this, is that the pain doesn't always last in the same way. for probably 70 minutes, my hamstring was extremely painful. The extent where running wasn't, was hard. And then I then hooked up with another Abdullah Ali Reza, who was running around, came and ran, and he was running a little bit faster than I was. And I kind of just hooked into him and just thought, maybe this can work. And I tried, running on my skeleton. I tried running with bent legs. I tried, anything to try and get rid of the pain of the physical act of running. And it just so happened that, I kind of started running a little bit faster. And was I suppressing the pain? Possibly, but the pain was not as great. And then, with a little bit more, actually, the pain sort of went away. And actually, I ran a weirdly quite good last 5K, better than I was imagining. So I think that sort of stuff. I think if you listen to like Tim Noakes or some of the guys who write about, like endurance running, you'll have, they've got this theory of the central governor who, your central governor will enable you to overcome or get, just disassociate your mind with your body and those kind of pain receptors that you get. And I want to differentiate, like proper, like, we're only running a half marathon here. So we're not like sprinting for our lives, but, obviously sometimes things are a little bit painful. But you can, you can.
Very stoic.
Yeah, very stoic. Yeah, very stoic. Well, I do think that philosophy is quite helpful when you're running long distance race. 5 hours of effort. It's quite a long time. Yeah.
Good. So what's next on the horizon?
So we're going to do. I think we're going to do some short Olympic races. I'm having some needles in my hamstring tomorrow to help me get over this stuff. I'm getting back on my strength training to make sure that my hamstrings and my whole posterior chain are strong. I need to get back to running. And we're going to do some WTU races in Abu Dhabi in 3 weeks' time. March, and then Hamburg Ironman, 4th of June. Full Ironman, not Frankfurt, Hamburg. It's better timing for me. Don't have to train through UAE summer. It's still flat, which is great.
Not true.
Like
not
riding
true.
around.
You have to train. You have to train during UAE summer for a 70.3 in August.
May isn't hot.
It's okay.
And then we'll see in the summer that obviously I've got world championships of 70.3 in Finland in August, and who knows what else, I mean, maybe if it all comes together, I'm quite strong now, so maybe we there's maybe Nice Ironman full distance. That's in September, isn't it? Who knows? You never know.
Who knows? We are preparing for that.
But the race goals are not important. But I do like the getting fitter and getting faster and getting to be a better version of yourself every time. That's important. Because I'm 51. I want to be doing this at 71. So at 71, as last weekend proved, you can still do a 5 hour of 70.3, which is not bad.
Not bad at all. I mean, it's a legacy sport, triathlon, and being fit is to create a legacy for the people that are waiting home, right? Any challenges during this period with your family? I mean, Elle has been supportive, and you don't have your kids with you, so in the end, it was okay from the point of view. You don't have to do school runs, but your wife was, affected by you on the crutches and training and physiotherapy and stuff like this.
Yeah, I think we were together for that whole period. So, and my wife is a teacher, so she was on kind of school summer holidays during that kind of slightly difficult period. It wasn't too bad. I mean, the rehab, I came back pretty quickly. I mean, we were like walking around the hills in the UK in the north of England, 5 or 6 weeks after the operation. So it wasn't too bad. I think she probably didn't appreciate that her husband ate and drank for 3 months and put on 10 kilos. But but that disappeared eventually. So that was all okay actually.
Give her some credit. She's gonna listen to this podcast, so give her some credit.
No, she's always been very supportive. I'm very fortunate. I have a wife who's had like far worse injuries than I have. She's had some crazy accidents.
Yeah, you told me about it.
Yeah, which have don't let a Coke machine fall on you and crush your pelvis. Anybody, let me tell you that, because that's serious bad news.
Yeah, for sure. Jonty, thank you very much for your words. I'd like to definitely hear from you soon. Okay, sharing his knowledge for the listeners, but also for us that we are speaking about things. So we get a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more awareness of tools that we can use. So tools of the humans. Thank you, Jonty.
Thanks, Tommaso.